Fans of Mike Mignola's Hellboy, are you still having nightmares from playing Dogs of the Night or Asylum Seeker? Maybe you've thought things were a little bit better with the Science of Evil. Well, we have a new one out, and it's the Web of Wyrd, and let's see how that compares. But before I go any further, make sure to take a look over at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames and learn how you can support us there. I don't want to cause any more arguments and debates about roguelike versus roguelite, but according to the developers themselves, Hellboy Web of Wyrd is a roguelike action brawler with an original story created in partnership with Dark Horse Comics and Hellboy creator Mike Mignola. I personally would think of it as a roguelite and might even go so far as to say a roguelite light, but more on that later. The story is that an agent of the BPRD goes missing and Hellboy is sent to investigate. This will pull him into an alternate dimension known as the Wyrd. And while yes, Wyrd would definitely fit the description of this alternate dimension, it is pronounced Wyrd as that is the original Norse origin of it. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the Hellboy universe, the BPRD is the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. It's a government agency that was set up by the United States and United Kingdom governments that are charged with researching the occult, paranormal, and supernatural, all while defending against them. While you do only get to play as Hellboy, various other characters from the BPRD will show up to be able to help you out in various ways throughout your adventure. If your experience is only through the movies though, you may be a bit disappointed to not see favorites like Liz Sherman or Abe Sapien, but obviously you will still know the main character himself, and it's more based on the comics. The main hub of your game is known as the Butterfly House, which was built in 1962 by occultist Pasquale Devigno. It's here that you'll talk to other members of the BPRD to find out more about the story and extra lore, be able to upgrade your equipment, and then jump back into the Wyrd itself. As I said before, there was an agent that was trapped in the Wyrd that you had to save. Now that he's been saved, you're going to explore the Wyrd more and more to find out maybe what happened to them, as things aren't quite as they seem since he's got back. The story is presented through talking to these characters, and sometimes it will go to some cutscenes that are very similar to looking at a motion comic. The characters aren't really animated, but the camera itself might pan around or move a bit. Typically speaking, these story segments aren't very long, so they won't take up much of your time, and they're going to happen in the Butterfly House. Once you're in the Wyrd itself, it's just going to be straight action. The gameplay is a roguelike brawler, but it's definitely very light on those aspects. Yes, you're going to have a run that you're going to go until you die, and there are only going to be upgrades that you have for that particular run, but those blessings, as they call them in this game, are very few and far between while you're doing said runs. There's also not a lot of variety as to what they actually are or what they do. It seemed very minimal at best, so for the most part, you're getting a brawler with just some slight RPG elements. Overall, you're going to have two major categories as to what these types of blessings will be. One of them is going to be doing stat boosts, like giving you a stronger punch or using your gun, and the other will increase the drop rates of various things like gold or health. Within the first few chapters, you're going to find out that you're only going to be getting about 2 to 3 of these blessings per run, not very much. Like I said, it doesn't really seem to affect the game all that much, so you're really going to have to rely more on your skill. On top of punching and using your gun, you'll also be able to learn the patterns to be able to dodge, parry, and block. Depending on the timing of it and what abilities that you eventually will unlock, this may be able to give you other little boosts and bonuses. I found that unlocking a lot of these abilities and other upgrades to the weapons took a very long time through most of my playthroughs, but there were multiple patches that came out that tried to make it a little bit easier. It still seemed a little bit too slow for my taste, so either that's just me, or maybe there will be some further updates to balance it further. The levels are procedurally generated, but you will find yourself in the same biomes over and over again. And with that comes not much in the way of enemy variety as well. Each biome has a set number of characters that you can run into, but it is less than a handful each and their minions that will follow them. You're going to be fighting the same enemies over and over again, using the same patterns over and over again. and it's just really very repetitive, unfortunately. The combat does get a bit monotonous, as well as you have your regular and heavy attack that are all the same button based on whether you tap or hold it, and it doesn't really do much in the way of combos other than just mashing the buttons. You do have some long-range weapons as well, but they don't factor into the combos, and it takes some time to be able to reload them until you upgrade those stats. Unfortunately, there are also multiple camera issues that I ran into while playing, and hopefully that will be something that will be fixed with future updates. Sometimes the camera might get a little bit wonky as you're walking too close to a wall or other type of environment, and then it just kind of fights you as you're trying to fix it with the right analog stick. And when you go to talk to people, it'll sometimes snap the camera around, and then when you're done, it spins you around and you're going in a totally different direction again. Another aspect of the combat that I haven't mentioned yet is being able to equip a charm that will give you a little extra ability with a cooldown. This could be something like pushing your enemy away or setting up a shield, but unfortunately it's the same B button that will also accept things, skip talking, interact with objects, and throw, and so you might end up using your charm by accident when you want to do something else. Enough with the complaining though, let's talk about the things that it does extremely well. As soon as you start playing Hellboy, you'll see that they spent a ton of time being able to make sure that it looked just like those comic books. From the way that the color is set up to the character designs themselves, they even went so far as to change the way the shading looks as you move the camera around. It truly felt like the comic book panels came to life, and even sometimes the animations would be intentionally choppy to kind of give it this weird cinematic feel. I feel that the sound department equally got just as much attention to detail as well, as while the music is a bit minimal and ambient, it does it in a great way. It almost felt like you're watching like a 90s Robert Rodriguez flick right before a fight is about to happen. You might have a bit of minimal music happening and all of a sudden a little guitar riff or some heavy bass will hit, and it just really fit the overall vibe that the game was going for. The voice acting was also super top-notch. You're going to hear a lot of recognizable voices that most people will probably know better than I did, but I know I recognize Steve Bloom, and also Hellboy himself is played by Lance Reddick. This is going to be one of his last roles before his untimely death. So while Hellboy Web of Wyrd is definitely a mixed bag, it is something that I can still recommend to fans of the Hellboy franchise. You're going to get a brawler that's going to be a little bit deeper than your typical brawler, but don't expect an actual roguelike or definitely not a Souls-like experience. It definitely has some rough around the edges gameplay, but the overall presentation is superb. The voice acting, the music, and the animation alone make it definitely something that's worth at least experiencing for a little bit of time.
Well, every time I defeat a Realm's Guardian, they produce a kind of doorway thing. They've all been inert so far. Could be a lead?